since the early Nissan Leaf, Mitsubishi i-MiEV and Chevrolet Volt were starting to roll off the production line more than a decade ago, there's been a quiet, tacit acknowledgement in the automotive industry that battery electric cars and range-extended models like the Chevrolet Volt were best suited to a life in the big city, or at least urban and suburban areas. And that was, honestly, with good reason. Those early electric vehicles had sub-100-mile, 160-kilometre ranges. DC quick charging was still very much an optional extra on cars, meaning many models didn't even have it or offer it, and the DC quick charging infrastructure that did exist was both sporadic in its deployment and frankly abysmal in its reliability. 10 years ago, if you wanted to own an electric vehicle, you'd better have somewhere to charge it overnight, have a predictable daily driving requirement, and have a second vehicle for long-distance trips. Or be willing to spend, literally, hours charging on the road. But those days are mercifully behind us. Unless, of course, you buy a brand new Mazda MX-30, that is. And according to new data from iSeeCars.com, the market share in the US has grown in states not known for their large cities, but rather ones known for being more rural, including Mississippi and Utah, along with the island state of Hawaii. So, is it time to drop that mantra that only people in urban and suburban areas can actually drive an EV? And what changes have happened to make EVs better suited to rural life? I'm going to delve into that and more today, but first, a quick reminder to subscribe and hit the notification bell for this channel. And of course, if you'd like to join the more than 1,400 people who are supporting this channel financially every month from just under $1, stick around until the end, and I'll tell you how. Prior to COVID-19, there was a definite, measurable population shift around the world as more and more people moved from rural areas to urban and suburban ones. That's changed slightly since COVID, with those who can afford to often choosing to head back out of the city to rural or at least less densely populated areas, both as a way of reducing infection risk, but also as a way to become more self-sufficient in a world where everything from food to consumables are in short supply. That, I think, does play a part in explaining a rural rise in EV sales, but I do think that is a pretty low contributing factor. What I think is more likely playing a part is the rise in the availability and choice of EVs in the marketplace. Gone are the days of limited range EVs, for the most part, and in their place models that are far more modestly priced have far more impressive specifications. The 2022 Chevrolet Bolt EV, for example, while not great when it comes to rapid charging on the road, has a 250-mile range and sub-$27,000 price tag in the US. Similar models do the same in Europe. In case of the Bolt, it's boxy enough to store a surprising amount of cargo when required, but it's also well managed enough to be half decent on medium-length trips. And if you live somewhere outside of a major city, say 50 to 100 miles out, 80 to 160 kilometers, it is actually possible to do a multi-hour round trip with that car without needing to worry about charging. And that's a big, big deal. Of course, the appearance of vehicles like the Ford F-150 Lightning has also helped raise awareness of electric vehicles among more rural buyers. While the F-150 Lightning Lariat and Platinum are cost prohibitive for most car buyers, the entry-level Ford F-150 Lightning Pro with a very basic perfunctory vinyl interior, but still with 220-mile, 354-kilometre real-world range, isn't actually that far off the price of a brand new F-150 internal combustion engine model. And as gas prices continue to rise, more and more people are starting to look at medium and long-range EVs as a possibility. Now, I know what you might be saying here. Rapid charging infrastructure isn't any good in rural America, and it's probably even worse in most rural parts of Canada, Australia, and parts of Europe. But while there are plenty of people for whom an electric vehicle still wouldn't be an option because their nearest rapid charger is a couple hundred miles or kilometres in the wrong direction to where they actually want to go, the increasing range and choice of modern EVs opens up going electric to many more consumers than ever before. A good case in point? My in-laws live a good couple of hours' drive from their nearest airport in small-town America. If they owned an early limited-range EV, going to that airport would have been basically impossible. Yet if you look at the distance they're out of that major city, 2 hours' drive, they are still within reach of the nearest rapid charging station and major metropolis, at least in most modern EVs. And if you consider that most people who live outside of the tightly cramped confines of large cities are more likely to have access to off-street parking, I would postulate it's actually easier to own and charge an EV in smaller towns and rural areas than it is for many apartment dwellers in inner cities. In short, as urban and suburban areas do everything they possibly can to make it harder for people to own cars, from restricting parking spaces to charging large amounts of money every month for parking permits, it does make more sense to take public transportation or rely on micromobility instead if you live in an urban area. And so it should, because those transportation choices are available to you. Less so in rural areas. This is especially true if you have to dedicate an hour every few days to finding a free public charging station and then spending some time waiting while your car rapid charges because you live in an urban area and you have no off-street parking. Moreover, if you live in a rural area, you are more likely to be a homeowner and therefore have a place to charge overnight. So you probably don't need to have any nearby rapid charging stations that you can use at a pinch. In fact, if you can refill every night while you sleep and jump into a fully charged car every day, I would also suggest EV ownership experiences would be better for you than they might be for a fellow EV owner in, say, New York or Los Angeles. Which brings me to another reason for the shift and why I think EVs are more suited to rural life than you probably think. The cost of fuel, and more importantly, availability of fuel. At one point, most towns, however small, had a gas station, but as the average size of a car's gas tank has grown and more mom-and-pop businesses have closed up shop, finding gas in rural America is harder today than it once was. And unlike an internal combustion engine vehicle where you really have to find somewhere to refuel, as long as you have power, you have EV charging, even if that EV charging is slower than you might like. What's more, if you live in a rural area, your work or school commute is going to be far larger than it would be in an urban area. That means you're spending more money on getting to and from work and other places. And with gas prices in parts of the US above $6 a gallon, you're likely paying through the nose just to get to work. But if you own an EV, even if it has a modest 200 or thereabout mile range, you're going to be paying a few bucks for 200 miles of driving rather than 40, 50 or 60 bucks for the same distance. And while I'm sure lots of people here are happy to spread all kinds of weird stereotypes about those who live in rural areas, most of which frankly are completely unfair, saved money is saved money. And there are other reasons as well. And for this one, I am going to make that observation that traditionally more rural areas tend towards more conservative political viewpoints. To date, often unfairly, electric vehicles have been portrayed as a partisan thing. Luxury and sometimes not so luxury electric cars are often lambasted as playthings of the wealthy liberal elite. Something that still happens to this day, in fact. And if you're not so sure what I mean, do check out the video Kate recently made on this channel, myth-busting some truly heinous claims made of electric vehicles by Fox Business. But well, electric vehicles, as they've become more and more widely available and more visible in the marketplace, they've also started to attract those who are more conservative in their viewpoints. Fiscal conservatives love electric cars because they're cheaper to operate and fuel. There are also reasons to go electric pertaining to national security, and of course, as Tesla CEO Elon Musk has become more politically active in sharing his thoughts, he's also becoming more visible on the right. And as a poll earlier this year detailed, many more people who identify as Republican are buying Teslas than ever before. So it would be ridiculous to assume that this expansion in customer base was only an urban and a suburban thing. Then, of course, there's the matter of having land. If you are in a more rural area, you are more likely, statistically speaking, to own your own home. And that means you are more likely to be able to install your own electricity generation at your home, be it a solar panel array or a wind turbine. While investing in your own renewable energy generation can be an expensive affair, if you are willing to make the long-term commitment, you can help lock in the price of charging your car. And if you pick the right type of car, or in my case, truck, you're going to be able to use your vehicle as a backup power station in the event of a power cut. And believe me, if you live in a rural area with a reasonably low population density, power cuts are regular seasonal events that you have to plan for. And when the power does go out, it can go out for a couple of days at a time. As someone who lives in rural Oregon, my nearest major town is about a 20-minute drive away, and I'm a good 40 minutes from central Portland if there's no traffic. I've been happily driving electric the entire time I've lived here in the boonies, and I have plenty of friends who live in far more rural areas around the world. Many of them also drive electric. So if you are in a rural area, don't discount an electric vehicle. It might be easier than you think. Your only real concern, if I'm honest, is living within reach of a nearby rapid charging station, just in case you need to go beyond the range that your regular charge will provide. But with most EVs offering 250 plus miles with ease, there are only a few people for whom an EV would really not work these days. Do you live in a rural area? Do you own an EV? And what has the experience been like for you? Leave your thoughts below. That's it for today's show. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and sharing it with your friends. And don't forget to leave your thoughts below or in our free to join Discord chat room. There are links in the video description. And if you really liked today's video, why not leave us a super thanks? It is easy to do, and everything you do send our way goes towards helping us make great content. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and our other channel, Transport Evolved Take 2, and give the bell a gentle ding to be told when our next video goes live. Thanks on behalf of the entire crew go out to everyone who makes this channel possible. That includes everyone who supports us on Patreon and YouTube, as well as those of you who watch the video and share it about. If you are a supporter at the charged up level, you'll see your name right here on my right hand side. And if you've just joined and your name is not there, we're sorry. We currently render the list every week or so, but sometimes our videos are produced a few weeks or days in advance, so your name might not be there yet. Thanks to our self-driving tier supporters, Chris Maxwell, Pedro Muir-Pinheiro, Patrick Boyarsky, Bernard Elder, Brian Newton, Dave Kitchen, Michael Goad, Ricky Leon, Andrew Martin, Guido Trahota, Brophy Wolf, Tesla in the Gong, Gordon C., Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Dan Blair, Jim Burness, Chris Ascenta, Chris and Michael Johnson, Peter Dillinger and Denny Hyde. And of course, out of this world thanks to our Starman level supporters: Anonymous Freak, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, Rory Litwin, Joe Bresney, Reed R, JP Fagerback, Russ, Will Graylin, Matthew Drobnak, Blue says hello, Kevin Boroughbridge, John Lyons, Andrew Glenn, Paul Conway, Laura Reynolds, Ellery Hensley, and Ian. If you'd like to be part of that amazing list, you can join Patreon at the link below, hit the join button to support us on YouTube, or show us your support through Bitcoin, Ko-fi, or our cool swag store, buying a t-shirt just like this one. And if you're unable to support us financially, just know that watching the video and sharing it really does make a difference to how our channel grows. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.